Hey everyone, welcome to Kingdom Builder TV. I'm your host, Jay Heilman. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm actually excited about my guest today because I've talked to a member of her family before. I've never got a chance to talk to her before, but I am excited to be joined by a member of the famous acting family of the Camerons. And I have Bridgette Cameron-Ridenhour with me this morning. Bridgette, how are you doing today?
Hey Jay, how are you? Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you coming by and chatting with us. And Um, obviously you come from a family that is well known in the, acting world. Your brother Kirk was on the show Growing Pains back in the 80s, went on to do the Left Behind films and still doing film. And then you've got uh you're number two, correct? You're number two in the with the children, and then you got Melissa, and then
Yes.
you've got your youngest sister, Candace Cameron-Bure, who, of course, was in Full House back in the 90s. And she's gone on to do a lot of the Hallmark type movies. But you, on the other hand, kind of stayed out of, film. You've done a couple things here and there, but you kind of didn't take that route. But you've also wrote a book about your experiences, which we're here to talk about today. It's called Overlooked, and my wife and I got a chance to read it. It's a wonderful book, kind of giving a history of just your history. Growing up in the family that is in show business. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this new book of yours and what readers can expect from it?
Yeah, it's Overlooked is just a fun, easy read. It's a memoir of just growing up with two famous siblings and really just getting the reader kind of behind the scenes of what that was like because inside those walls of our home, we were just a completely normal family. I mean, Kirk being the older brother, tormented and tortured his three younger sisters, just like siblings would. Us three girls fought and over clothes and makeup and all that kind of stuff. So within those walls, we were a normal family. My mom stayed at home. My dad was a school teacher. But outside those walls, our life was completely different. And it's interesting because a couple of things, most people don't know that Kirk and Candace have two other siblings. They're like, oh my gosh, we didn't know that there was four of them. And what a lot of people don't know is that I was actually the reason my mom finally agreed to take the four of us into Hollywood and audition for a Hollywood agent. I was the little performer in the family. I was the one that did all the school plays and recitals and things like that. So um, it's not to say that I didn't want to get into the business. I actually really did, and the truth is, I just didn't get chosen that day. My other siblings did, but the agent didn't choose me. And so that's kind of where my journey like started from. And so Overlook just kind of takes you through that and the heartaches and the joys of all of that and where I'm at now.
Yeah, and I got a chance to, you wrote this book, and I know that Candace has written a book over the years. I know Kirk has written a book a while back, and that was one of the things that I had read in Kirk's book was, that acting bug was not necessarily there at first. It wasn't something that he really wanted to do, but then it kind of took off, and the rest, as we say, is history. But looking back, do you really think that that was a part of God's plan for you, not really to be in that so much as Kirk and Candace?
Absolutely, 100%. I feel like God had Kirk and Candace in such a place, putting them first in Hollywood and having them really kind of build that foundation for, the Cameron family or the Cameron name. I mean, I am so incredibly thankful that, my siblings are who they are. They're amazing and they've kind of paved the way for me. I mean, I don't know if I would be on such an incredible journey doing what I'm doing if I didn't have Kirk and Candace with that name kind of, behind me and supporting that and people wanting to get to know my story. So it's yeah, I truly, truly think that God has a plan and a purpose, and that was definitely his journey for us.
So I know that thing that I read in the book that I thought was really cool is that how you describe your mom and dad and your other three siblings as just a normal family. And then Hollywood comes knocking and everything like that. But I know looking back, when I was reading Kirk's book back in the day, he talked about how he had found Jesus and stuff. Kind of at the tail end of the Growing Pains series, but tell us about your faith journey. How did you come to know Jesus? I know that you guys didn't really grow up in the church, but it was something that individually all of you had to kind of come to that um, you know, knowledge of Christ yourself. How did you find Jesus?
Yeah, we were a family that did not grow up with any kind of faith in our home. We were, somewhat one of those families that fit into that CEO category of faith, Christmas and Easter only. That's when we went to church, really. And my dad didn't want any kind of faith. He didn't grow up with anything. My mom knew Christ as a little girl. So there really wasn't any kind of Christianity or faith growing up. And it wasn't until Kirk was dating a girl and went to church for the very first time. And this was when Kirk was at the height of his career doing Growing Pains. And he heard the gospel message in church for the very first time. And the pastor said, if you were to die today, would you be going to heaven or hell? And Kirk really thought about that. And even though he was doing all these amazing things with all these wonderful charities and things like that, he knew that those things were not going to get him into heaven from what this pastor was teaching that morning. So Kirk drove home that day, and he was really feeling, um, stirred by the Holy Spirit, and he pulled over to the side of the road in a parking lot, and he prayed the most raw and real prayer that he could, and said, God, I don't know, I don't know how to do this, but if what I heard today in church is real, I need you in my life. And he asked Jesus into his heart. And, it wasn't like this miraculous thing. And he came home and burst through the door and was like, guys, look what I did. It was, Kirk just kind of changed. Like his personality changed, the way that he treated his sisters were changing. Definitely his character on Growing Pains was changing, and he wasn't kind of being that Mike Seaver kind of character. Um, and Kirk and I are 10 and a half months apart. So we're very, very close. Even now, I mean, I totally respect everything that he shares. And so during that time, I knew if this was something that was important to him, and I was seeing changes in him physically and emotionally and spiritually, I thought, you know what, this is something, this has got to be really good. Um, because Kirk wouldn't I wouldn't see these changes in him. And so Kirk just kind of planted those seeds, inviting us to church and inviting us to youth group and worship concerts and things like that. And we just started going. And then it was at that time, I was 16 years old, and I could kind of start to feel that stirring that Kirk felt. And I thought, wow, this is really, really powerful. And we were at a worship concert in Thousand Oaks, California, and I was just crying. And Kirk just looked at me, and the pastor was, doing this call to the altar call, basically, inviting people to come up and invite Jesus into their heart for the first time. And I just sat there and cried. And Kirk said, "Is this something that you want to do?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't really know how to do it, what I'm doing, but I just feel like it's right." And he's like, "Let's go." And he led me up there, and he helped me pray that sinner's prayer. And yeah, and that's when I asked Jesus into my heart. And then it just kind of trickled down with all of us kids, Melissa and Candace. We started getting baptized, and my mom rededicated her life. And also too, during this time, our parents were separated. They were living apart. And my mom started going back to church and rededicating her life. My dad took a lot longer before he had accepted Christ. He was a school teacher. He had lots of questions, and he wanted those questions answered. And he gets pretty deep with his questions. It's not just surfacey, oh, here's the answer to that. He really wants you to dive into the answer that you're giving him. And so, but eventually he did accept Christ, and was actually baptized on a men's weekend from my brother. My brother actually got to baptize him. My parents
Um,
stayed together. They never divorced, and they'll be married, gosh, 55 years this June. So just incredible how God works and how He knew back then um, that He had a plan and a purpose for us, um, even at such a young age when we didn't even know who He was. So it's pretty incredible.
That is incredible. And the one thing that I've found over the years talking to people that have are either involved in Hollywood or uh, do behind the scenes or something like that, I have noticed that it is harder to really kind of break through to those people because of, the world that they're in there. So I think that it's cool, being able to read these stories. And yours is the third one I've read. I've, been able to read Kirk's book, I read Candace, and now yours. And it's really cool to see just the journey from the beginning to where God has taken all of you. And that's amazing. And you talk about in the very beginning, you're talking about how Kirk was that, bratty older brother that would like torment you guys and stuff like that. And I find it really redeeming that he was the one that kind of brought that home and that spread throughout his family. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirk is just, he's amazing. He's the real deal. I admire him and I respect him. And, yeah, again, it's just interesting that God would choose him first to kind of lead the way and pave the way. But, it just seems right. I don't know why. To me, looking back, it just kind of seems right that it happened that way.
God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he?
Yep, sure does.
Yeah, so like looking at now, you're obviously you didn't take that route into film. You and Melissa kind of were the ones that kind of, let Kirk and Candace do their
I
thing as
do it
far
all
as
the time.
acting
Don't
goes.
worry. I do that all the time.
Kirk and Candace did their thing with acting and stuff, but you and Melissa kind of didn't take that route. You know, you dive into the book about, what you did later on and how you felt overlooked, but it has really, developed into something that you feel that God has used in your life,
Mhm.
and that you want to share that story with others. So when people read Overlooked, not only are they going to get this, candid journey about the family, going into Hollywood for the first time and kind of, going from there. But when readers read this book, what's the biggest thing that you want them to take away after reading it?
Yeah, I just, one when you read the book, I mean, the title Overlooked, some people think, oh, it's going to be like a Cameron tell-all. Ooh, she's going to tell like all the juicy gossip of the Camerons, and that's not true. It's just, I really just really want readers to know that God has a plan and a purpose for everybody. And yes, everybody, I'm sure, at some point has felt overlooked in their life, whether it be at home, in school, in their work, all of those things. And we can't compare our journey to other people because God has a plan and a purpose, a specific plan and a purpose for all of them. And everybody's story is different. And we just need to let God write our story. Just give him the pen, let him write your story, and
Amen.
trust that he has the perfect journey for you. And just growing up, I mean, yeah, there were times absolutely that I felt there was jealousy, there was hurt, there were all of these emotions because I watched not one but two of my siblings do all the things that I wanted to do as a child. Even though I still did the plays and the recitals, and Kirk and Candace and Melissa, they even were there watching me in those things. But watching Kirk and Candace be on TV and have the fans and all of that stuff, yeah, there were times where I was like, gosh, I wish that was me. But my parents made it so great for Melissa and I to be able to go with Kirk and Candace when they had some kind of an appearance, because my parents always kept us together as a family. If my mom could get the first class tickets down to coach tickets and take one of us, with her and Candace and Kirk, and we all can go, or a couple of us can go, she would do that. And so it was great because we were, even though Melissa and I really weren't, in front of the camera with all of that, fans were still noticing and knowing who we were. And we were, asked to take pictures and sign autographs and all of that fun stuff. And sometimes it's hard, I don't want to say sometimes, it is hard in life because we're just, the world that we live in, I think my thought is we're so quick to always think about what hasn't happened and all of the negative, and we forget about all the good and amazing things that God has done in our life, right? So
Hmm.
even though I wasn't in front of the camera as a child star or an actor, I worked for child stars and child actors when I graduated high school as a stand-in. I was offered a stand-in position, and if your readers and listeners don't know what that is, a stand-in is an adult who stands in for the child actors while they are in school. They get to rehearse for the other actors, the director, producers, cameras, lighting, all of that. And when I was given that opportunity right out of high school to work on Full House with Candace, I was like, oh my gosh, I get to do everything that I love doing, um, every single day. Yeah, I'm not in front of the camera, but man, what an amazing opportunity. And my goodness, my career as a stand in, I worked on Full House for 6 years, and then I went to Home Improvement, stood in with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and the other actors on that show. I worked on, other commercials and movies and things with all kinds of stars and celebrities. And so even though I might have had these feelings of God forgetting about me and not giving me the desires of my heart, I need to remember all those good things of being a stand-in and all the things that I got to do and the people that I got to meet, and be grateful that he didn't ever forget about me. He put me in the place and the seasons of my life that he felt at that time was right for me.
Amen. And I just, in the one thing that I like about your family, about, Kirk, Candace, you, and just the entire Cameron family, and it's even kind of trickled down into, Candace's daughter is also doing stuff now. She wrote a book. I got a chance. That was the other one I read, and that was amazing. I'm like, wow, this is coming from like a teenager. So
Yeah.
it was really cool. My daughter enjoyed that because she was 16 at the time that that book came out. So that was really cool. But one thing that I really like about the Cameron family is your stand for Jesus, and it's unwavering. Especially Kirk has gotten a lot of flack over the years for standing for his faith, but he hasn't wavered, hasn't backed down, which I think is amazing. Candace is very much like that too. Candace has been, challenged about her faith and about her views and like not wanting this, not wanting to be a part of this or that. And I love the fact that she still stands firm in her faith. She's not afraid to stand up for that. And that's one thing that I think, if I think about the Cameron legacy, I think about standing firm in faith, regardless of what your platform is. But from your point of view, when you're looking at legacy, for yourself and for your siblings, what is it that you want fans, family, friends, and anyone who sees that last name in the future, what do you want them to remember the most when they see that last name Cameron?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. That we aren't willing to waver from our faith, that we did stand, you know, um, for what we believe in. And I've even had some situations with work and things where, I was put in some situations where I didn't want to lose my job, by doing stuff, but I really had to really think about, you know, what I would do in that moment. And I wasn't going to waver at all, because if Jesus was sitting right next to me, how would I feel if I turned from him and went with what society thinks or this world thinks is, what we need to do? And I just want the world to know, and people to know that we're just a very strong faith family. And we believe in the gospel. We believe in the word of Jesus Christ and who he is and what he can do. And we're not going to waver. One of the one of the praises in Overlooked is actually from a casting agent that I reached out to. And, you know, one of the questions that I always say is like, God, why did you choose us? And she came back with a great answer and just said, because God knew your family was not going to, you know, stray away or, be quiet. You guys are going to stand proudly for Jesus Christ and what he believes in. And that's what
And
I want people to know. And I also too, I mean, like you said, Kirk gets so much, you know, a lot of hate and a lot of, all kinds of stuff. And it does as a sibling, even Candace does too, as a sibling, it does, it hurts my heart because they're my siblings. I love them so much. Um, and some people, the ones that are making the comments, they don't know Kirk and Candace on a personal level. They're just seeing what they're doing um, and not agreeing to it. But gosh, if you could just really sit down with them and one on one, sit in Kirk's backyard with a cup of coffee by his campfire, you will have the most intellectual and deep conversations with him. And you will just literally walk out of there just going, wow, like, I
mm,
get it. I totally get it. Same with Candace, and um, we're just we're just real. We're just, you know, I don't know.
what you see is what you get.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Well, that's amazing. And especially like when in the Hollywood, you don't really see that as much these days. That's amazing to see that's the thing that hits me most about you guys, about your family, is that there's no wavering in the faith there, which is amazing. And I would highly suggest people who have not got a chance to check out this book. It's called Overlooked. And I am so humble and just very thankful to have Bridgette Cameron-Ridenhour join us today to talk about this book and just her journey with her siblings in Hollywood. So, Bridgette, thank you so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to come by and talk with us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on Kingdom Builder TV.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.